Weirdest thing happened to me the other day. Somebody, I think Andrew actually retweeted this, and it was Justin McElroy had a thing on his blog that was all about, I'm going to rate all of these, like, Canadian shows from the 1980s.
Not that Justin
and
McElroy.
I was getting to that, and that's why I bring it up.
Sorry.
Because I went there and I'm like, why the hell? And then I started reading the whole thing. I'm like, why the hell would Justin at all be? I'm like, well, he grew up on the East Coast and maybe they got the things.
Yeah.
I was doing all this justification in my head to make this make sense. Clicked on another article reading, it's like, in the country I live. And I'm like, okay, whoa, hang on. I know perfectly well. And then get to the bottom and go back and look at this guy's Twitter account and discover that he works for CTV Vancouver.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're close to Vancouver. We should have Justin McElroy on sometime. Maybe have him in the same room at the same time and be like, hey, maybe you guys want to argue about which one's real.
Yeah. Let me tell you though, that Canadian entertainment like bracket thing is shattering Canadian Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
It's shattering Canada.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I voted for the Raccoons, not because I wanted to make anyone mad, because I really actually did enjoy the Raccoons.
fair enough. And it also brought up the fact that very few people remember any amount of the TV show, the Canadian TV show, The Odyssey, beyond like a couple of seconds.
Like I saw you tweeting about it and was like,
it's our Candle Cove. Yeah.
Right, like just this, like, vague memory of this utterly bizarre show.
Yeah, so, Canada, should I explain? Like, Canadian
Go for
pop
it.
punk.
Yeah.
Canada has a big inferiority complex about not being mistaken for the United States, and back in the 90s it was a little easier for them. No.
We do not.
Yeah. So we have something called the CanCon, Canadian Content Laws, where 35% of all media that it goes out on the airwaves, be it radio, TV, needs to be Canadian made. I have to follow it when I'm doing my radio show, and so the CBC has to, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation has to also adhere to that. So we had a bunch of exclusively Canadian shows growing up that the US did not get. And right now this guy, the other Justin McElroy 1 as opposed to Justin McElroy A, is running, is running, like, he started with 64 things, like quintessential Canadian media things, and is having us vote down to the top one, and it's going to be Heritage Minutes or Body Break, but
That's gonna be the Raccoons.
that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
However, one of the things that came up was that he said, there were people who said, "Oh my God, why wasn't the Odyssey on here?" And I was like, "Wait a minute, hang on." And
Was this a real thing?
This was real, and I actually had this experience in the summer because I interviewed at an agency in BC to do records management for them, and they had video. They had like a whole box that said from the Odyssey, and I was like, was it from the TV show? They were like, yeah. I was like, that was real. so the Odyssey was a TV show that starred Ryan Reynolds and Jewel Staite.
What?
Not in the starring roles, but they were in it.
Nice.
And it was about a kid who falls out of a tree house in the first episode, and he ends up in like this weird, like, fantasy world. Like, he's in a coma, but he's also in this weird fantasy world where like nobody ages past 16, which is something I don't remember. I looked up. And for the longest time, because it was in the early 90s and it was Canadian, it was one of those things that, like, when the internet was just picking up, no one had written about it. I remember looking for it on IMDb, and it didn't show up.
Right.
And so for the longest time, I just was like, okay, maybe I made it up. Like, I seem to remember it, no one else does. So I talked about it on Twitter, and then every single Canadian around our age was just like, I remember 5 seconds of that.
Like, literally, that's my only
literally 5
recollection
seconds
of
of
it.
it.
The archetypal Canadian television thing of running through a forest outside of Vancouver.
Correct. And Alex Mack was Canadian too. The Secret World of Alex Mack.
Right.
But yeah, so it kind of emerged that all of us had remembered the Odyssey fondly, but vaguely. And then, so it really was like our non-creepy Crystal Cove.
Right.
It was just like, okay, it's possible we all made it.
Who hasn't driven yet?
But
It's
I
a
have not.
shared,
Good. Have a seat.
our shared cultural hallucination.
Yeah.
You know how, right?
I do.
Good. Be right back. Mute mic.
Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah. Man, TV in the 90s in Canada and 2000s was great.
Yeah.
So.
So I had a.
Was it great? Was it, or was it just
No,
there?
I mean, great in,
I
you know.
loved it. I lived off of it.
But yes, and Alex Mack was a very long Capri Sun commercial. That's a very good way of putting it.
So I have kind of a similar story of like a TV show that you couldn't realize that you weren't sure if was real or just a dream you had. And for years I thought that this show was a fever dream I had because it made no sense when I spoke it out loud. From the 90s, it involved like a meteor hitting a junkyard, and somehow like cars became vampires.
But
The show was called Vampires. The majority of the dialogue is car puns. And like somehow it involved like teenagers who could turn into the other thing, who could turn into them as well. They were, it was weird. Like when these memories surfaced in my head, I'm like, this can't be real. This has to be like a weird dream I had, you know, when I was sick or something, when my mind was gone. And then like I actually went like, I'm gonna Google this, and it was like, holy. I'm like, oh my god, this is a real show.
Yeah.
That ran for 13 episodes. That apparently won awards for CGI? Because like the bulk of the show is just CGI. Because it's like these weird humanoid car things that like feed on gasoline. It makes no sense when I say it out loud.
No,
Real live
that's-
fever dream.
That's really interesting because like I'm all about 90s cartoons and I do not recall this at all.
I remember Animorphs.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Jeff, was showing us like all these old 90s title sequences from cartoons.
Okay.
And one of them was, I forget it now, but it was like a vaguely military space series with like, you know, it wasn't G.I. Joes really, but they were astronauts fighting aliens. And suddenly I remembered I actually had all of the toys,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I had deleted it from my memory.
Yep.
And I remember they had like backpacks and laser guns, and like one of the ships was like a big transport plane, and it had panels on the side that you pushed out and they would leave her open and fire missiles out of, and it was totally sweet, and it had like a turret on the back. It was basically
Yeah, this sounds like Exo Squad.
The one
I keep wanting to call it Silverhawks, but it wasn't Silverhawks. Silverhawks was a different thing that involved a cowboy cyborg that piloted a ship by playing a guitar.
Yes, yes, Clock Tamer, that is
Was it-
Vampires.
Was it Exo Squad?
the one I can't
Was it?
remember that
Micronauts or
It was
what
kind
what
of-
did they call it again?
it's kind of like in the vein of Power Rangers, but the main character went into a computer and had like this red and silver with like a full mask on, and he fought things in the virtual world,
Oh wait.
and I cannot remember.
Did it involve
Yes.
like
Darkom! That was it!
Did it involve like historical figures?
Maybe
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking
I know
about.
what you're talking
I
about too.
I don't know the name of this show.
I even have
Sherlock Holmes and the
I even have like the main character, like when I had the main character's like figurine, and I don't remember what the series was. And I cannot find any.
So what's fascinating here, as a nerd and an archivist, is like just how recently it was that something
Yes,
would go
what?
away and not come back.
Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. That's what it was.
No. That was another show.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay, then. I'm trying to think of it because I think you are thinking of another show. Because Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad was one of those. Was another one of the Japanese shows that
It's a
people
Sentai
think of.
series, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
it's like.
Probably more of a superhero actually instead of the Sentai thing, but whatever.
Yeah. No. The show you're talking about. Either we're talking about the same or different thing, but I know that there was a show involving a guy punching a computer with a ring to like go into it.
Wait, sorry, Cameron. what did you say the name of this was?
Starcom.
I wish you'd told me like a long time ago because I had lots of that when I was a kid.
Was it real cheap? Or
It wasn't that cheap because there was
No,
lots
yeah.
of magnets in it.
That's the one
oh
right
my
there.
god.
Okay,
I had,
yeah, no, I remember that show.
Yeah,
but
the
I was
Star
thinking
Rider.
Oh, man.
Does anybody else remember Ghost Rider? I do.
Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Chat, you're amazing. That's been bothering me for like 2 years now.
So
yeah.
if I could have one thing re-released and I know it won't be because of who owns it, is Disney's Fillmore.
Yeah! Oh,
that-
man, Fillmore was the best.
Wasn't it good?
I mean,
Fillmore.
old Family Channel cartoons were the best.
Yeah.
I was all about that.
It's on ABC for us.
Fillmore was like this police procedural.
A 1970s gritty cop show.
Yeah, filmed in a middle school.
Yeah.
It took
Yeah.
place in a middle school. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was perfect, and I didn't watch it. Heather
Yeah.
watched it.
Yes!
Fillmore and Ingrid.
Fillmore.
And
oh
then
my god.
and then she was like, "You have to see this." I'm like, "No, I don't. This is stupid." And she's like, "You need to see this." And I'm like, "This is so good. What? Well, we can get this on DVD, right?" She's like, "No, we can't." And I'm like, "Well, why did you show it to me?
Yeah.
Why am I never going to get to see any more of this?" I was kind of upset. I went looking everywhere to be like, maybe in another country, maybe somewhere else. No, Disney has
Right.
completely forgotten about this and will probably never release it until they have their own streaming solution set up. I have a feeling.
I love
Yeah.
one of the best gimmicks of it too is that Ingrid had a photographic memory
Ah.
of everything.
'Cause-
Yeah.
And the thing is that the cast was all culturally correct, right? It was like we're gonna be like a varied amount
Ghost Rider.
of ethnicities built into this.
Yeah.
Oh, so to go back a bit to your comment on that other Justin McElroy.
Yeah.
Fun fact: before he worked for CTV, he actually worked for Global, and he did an article about Desert Bus. in
Hey!
2009.
Wow.
Got there.
Wow. It all pulls around.
Yeah,
This is what we call coming full circle.
That's good.
I've actually been I actually email him every year asking